thank you, Travis, and Diane as well for the awesome presentation. It's very nice to see all of these use cases that are developing on Helium. So quick intro. I'm one of the 6 guys. My name is Maya. I'm a geologist, and I've joined the Helium community since about September of last year. We have here as well Herculano. Maybe you want to say something, Herculano?
Hello all.
All right, and then we have a few more here in different places. All right, so let me just try and share my screen. I have a quick presentation here. All right, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. All right. So we're a team based out of Portugal. By the way, quick plug, Danielle, which is the founder of Hotspotty, which you've probably seen here as well many times. He's here as well. He's also in Lisbon. So this is kind of the Portugal team for all of us. So basically we're expanding the Helium network in Portugal. Let me see if I can change screens here. Hold on. All right, there it is. So Portugal, for those of you that don't know, it's a little seabound country at the most west side of Europe. It's known for 3 things, or 4 things. It's Cristiano Ronaldo, wine, sun, and pastéis de nata in this order. So Portugal always has a lot of trade going on since about the 1500s. So it's all of our home bases. So it was a perfect place to deploy the Helium network. So yeah, so we already gave a quick intro. So we all have different backgrounds in different areas, and we're all high school friends. So we all came together to deploy the Helium network. So our main goal is first, of course, to deploy the infrastructure, so get complete coverage of the entire nation, and then to develop the use cases as well simultaneously. Because just having a network, if no one uses it, it doesn't make that much sense. And Portugal is a little bit tricky because it has a lot of mountains, so it's quite tricky to deploy the network. So just a quick rundown of what we've done so far last month. So we've installed 50 gateways in Lisbon, which was our kind of first trial by fire, our first pilot project for the Helium deployment. So we deployed 50 gateways in 2 weeks. So that was a lot of work, but it was very interesting and a very big learning experience, especially because none of us are from the electronics and LoRa fields. So it was all learning as we go. So here are a couple of pictures of our deployments. So although we didn't know that much about the technologies, we learned quite quickly. So we, especially with our background, so we did a lot of GIS analysis, topographical mapping, height profiling, RF signal profiling, the entire thing that you would normally do to get a reasonable certainty about how the signal propagation patterns will be. So we spent almost a month in preparation for that. So we have a couple more pictures. So this is more or less the Helium Explorer with all of the hotspots and all of the proof of coverage links. So let me go to the next one. So we tried to deploy all of these hotspots so that we get the maximum amount of coverage with the least amount of hotspots possible. And I think that is quite critical to get the fastest amount of coverage as possible. So what you see in a lot of cities right now is that a lot of people are putting hotspots in the same city, while many times there is 6, 7, maybe sometimes 8 times redundancy on signal. that could be used elsewhere to expand and get more coverage. So here's a quick example. One of our gateways talks to another one at 110 kilometers, and that is for a region with a lot of mountains. It's quite good. All right. So yeah, this one is line of sight. So we also did, of course, coverage mapping. So this enables us to go to customers and actually show that there is signal available in those places. And we did all of this mapping by foot and car, etc., with the LGT92, which many of you are probably familiar with. So so this is the evolution of our coverage mapping in the area. So we started in January, and then in March we got a significant increase. Another region, the Entroncamento area as well, where we're also very focused on getting all the coverage mapping done. And so many of these. So we already have a couple of these sensors deployed on Helium, and the range has been pretty good at 11 kilometers. It's quite a nice range. So this, for those of you that are interested in the earnings parts, for example, it really pays off to do careful planning on hotspot deployment. So if you see here, if you compare, for example, Portugal in the list of hotspots, this nation has less hotspots, but has a higher reward than many of the other countries that have more hotspots, specifically because they're all optimized to get the highest amount of coverage possible. So now that we are very busy with deploying the Helium network, we have deployed 50 of these gateways. We have another 150 for April planned. We're also looking actively, almost at the same weight as well, at use cases for all these sensors, because 4G etc. is very expensive, and there are a lot of places in Portugal where there's no coverage for any type of IoT related applications. So we are working on a few pilots simultaneously, and since Portugal is a country in the south of Europe, they have a lot of agriculture. So mainly is for the vineyards. They also have a lot of blueberry plantations. So we are trying to specifically create partnerships with the cooperatives. So in Portugal, there are thousands and thousands of micro farmers, and those micro farmers are usually not as tech savvy. So together with the cooperatives, we can deploy sensors for all of these farmers, and then they work with their agricultural engineers to then create the type of interaction which is useful for them. Let me go to the next one. So one of the main, or one of the interesting topics in Southern Europe in general is that Europe is drying from the bottom up. So with climate change, a lot of Southern or Northern Africa, Southern Europe is slowly drying. There's less and less rain. So, and also more sun intensity as well. So what is happening with, for example, the vineyards is they're normally turned towards the south. That's where they get more sun. But now there's a problem that there's too much sun and too much heat. So if you don't give the vineyards enough water and protect them well enough, your harvest can go to waste. So there is a lot of more interest in these smart technologies to measure temperature, humidity, soil parameters, etc., to make sure that the damage stays limited. All right. So we already discussed this one. So another very, very important use case, and it's probably one of the main applications in Southern Europe. And if you compare this to, for example, California as well, it's more or less the same type of climate, is forest fires. So a lot of people die each year, the last couple of years, almost 30% of the entire country was burned by forest fires. And there's a lot of incentive to reduce the response time. So many of these fires, they're not detected soon enough. So if they happen, they only get the fire brigade only goes to stop the fire if someone calls them, and that usually can take upwards of 30 to 40 minutes. And now there are a lot of sensors being developed by Bosch, which measure the volatile organic compounds, the sulfur compounds, hydrogen, carbon monoxide, dioxide, in order to measure all of the different parameters which are associated with forest fires. So we're in contact with a number of universities in Portugal as well to develop sensors which we can deploy next to roads, because most of the fires are man-made, so they are made close to roads, so that we can deploy these with solar panels as well, because that's another thing. A lot of sensors these days which are pre-made don't have solar panels, so it's quite hard if you have thousands of them to maintain them. So a small cell with these $5 to $7 sensors, and we're going to, together with the fire department this summer, do a pilot with around 50 to 100 of these sensors on the Helium network. So first, we're going to deploy all of these gateways, and then we're going to do a couple of tests this summer with deploying fire detection sensors. So this is quite exciting, and there's a lot of interest within the local municipalities to make sure that these fires are detected sooner and that the damage is contained. And as well, because everything is getting warmer, it's getting drier. These fires have a lot more impact the last couple of years than they would have 10 or 20 years ago. So that's very important. And then the last pilot that we're working on as well, which is not very critical, but it's still pretty interesting as well, is the delivery tracking. So Portugal is a very rural country, so it has one or two big cities, but then in between there are not very big cities, so things like DoorDash and Uber Eats, etc., are not available in these places. And there are a lot of companies that want to show tracking information for their customers, but everything that is available is upwards of $6-7 per month, which is just and that's just for the data. So that's way too expensive. So we're having a lot of interest, and we're working with currently 2 delivery companies, which have about 30 to 40 people going out all the time, who are very interested in just having one of these simple GPS trackers on board, and then they can follow where everyone is going and then coordinate all of their efforts. And that's something that can be done fairly simply on the Helium network. So we're also working with them. All right, I think that's it. Was pretty quick presentation, but just in a nutshell, we're all deploying the Helium network in Portugal, and at the same time trying to drive a lot of the adoption and showing people that that there is coverage and that the network can be used. Some maybe takeaways for hotspot deployment as well is that you really have to be careful, and it takes a lot of effort to especially in regions where there are a lot of mountains. It takes a lot of effort to make sure that there is proper coverage. All right, I'll open the floor to questions next. Stop sharing.
I'll start us off here. You spoke earlier in your conversation or in your presentation about finding the right location for a hotspot. What techniques are you using to to find the right spot to put these guys in?
Yeah, that's an very interesting point. So actually, this is a little bit of a geology background, but what happens, especially in Iberia, is that you have a couple of mountain building phases. And then all of the mountain regions have a certain pattern. So they're almost kind of a sinus curve, right? So you have to mostly deploy these hotspots on the top, on the crest of all of these mountain regions, and then you can follow the strike of these chains to get the best coverage. So you cannot just place them anywhere, because if you're a little bit down, you won't see the hotspots on the backside. So it's very difficult, and you have to then find the locations on those places. But that's something that we really try to do in Lisbon as well, is that it's a basin. So on both sides of the basin, you have higher regions. So we try to always make sure that we have line of sight across both sides of the basins, and if it's a mountain regions, on both sides of the crest, so that you don't only talk downwards into the valley, but also on opposite sides. Otherwise, you will have a pretty big shadow zones, basically, where you don't have any signal.
Did you find you used mostly 6 dBi antennas or 3 or 9?
Yeah, we in all of our installations, we use the 6.5 microtic antennas because they are relatively inexpensive, and it really helps to punch through buildings and dense the woods and things like that. Yeah, so we almost we're
as well.
Yeah, we are mainly really focused on outdoor installations. So indoor installations, we have completely set that aside. So we're mainly targeting rooftops and very high location. And the advantage, of course, then we need less hotspots as well, so we can expand faster.
Do you bring PoE out to the exterior radio locations, Ethernet? Yes.
Yeah, always. Yeah, we do everything via PoE. I think there are, many of you in the antenna channel mentioned as well the LMR 400, right? The cables with less loss, but those cables are very expensive. So if you can just have a 1 meter antenna and then have a 6 cents per meter Ethernet cable, it's a lot more cost efficient to do it that way.
Would you mind speaking very quickly about what you do on lightning protection on these
sure.
outdoor installations?
Yeah, so we do lightning protection of the pole of the mast to ground, and we have as well 2 of those Ubiquiti surge protectors. We use one which we screw which we mount against the antenna pole, so that any surge that comes to the antenna goes to the pole, and then we also have one inside as well. So we have 2 surge protectors, and we directly connect it to ground. So what we have to do with a lot of houses is that it's very difficult to go from outside to inside to get to the ground cable. And some houses, especially in Portugal, especially the older houses, don't have any ground connection. So then we're forced to just slam a 1.5 meter copper pipe into the ground to actually get the proper grounding we need. Yeah.
What is your estimation on getting full coverage, or what is the goal as far as what you consider full coverage out there?
Yeah, so estimate on full coverage. We have in April we are going to hit one entire district, which we need about 50 hotspots for, but there are like 20 districts. So it's going to be upwards of 1,000 gateways. The advantage is that more in the southern regions of the country is very flat. So the more we go northward, it gets a lot more complex. So in the south, we can almost cover half of the country with 20 gateways. But yeah, I mean, same as here in Holland. Here in Holland, you can basically, since it's all flat, you can get complete coverage with maybe 15, 20. But yeah, we're going to be looking at upwards of 1,000 gateways. But that said, we are also deploying this one region at a time, so that we can also deploy the sensors at the time. So at the same time that we're deploying, we are talking to municipality and the fire brigades, etc., to get those applications at the same time as that we mount all of the infrastructure for Helium.
Okay. How are you handling mapping when you're looking at coverage, like real world mapping on the ground? How are you, getting that data? How are you using that data to help plan locations for future hotspots?
That's a very interesting point. So what we try to do is we work from a core outwards. So we have a core where we have 4 or 5 hotspots, and then we build out in kind of 3 rings. And then as we build out, we do mapping as well. So if we have one ring installed, we go out, we do mapping at the rim of that zone, and specifically also where we are planning to deploy future gateways. And then we see, okay, which hotspots do we get? What is the signal strength, the RSSI, etc. And then if we see, okay, this is proper connection, then we build out that layer and then we increase. So we do it very systematically. We don't deploy gateways and then hope that it works. We really have a consistent plan to build it out. Then we know absolutely certain that there will be coverage in those regions. Sometimes it happens where there is some hole, especially in the signal, especially in valleys. But then we just plan another one after to solve those issues.
And that helps you keep like your deployment costs down, your hotspot costs down, and keeps earnings up, I guess.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. And at the same time, we also pay a few people to just basically drive around with the mappers full time.
Sure.
Because the coverage mapping is not only important for us, right? It's important for everyone on Helium that has any use cases in mind for a specific region, that they can go out and say, look, these are the areas that we have coverage. Like in Lisbon, it's pretty simple because it's all a city. You have to go out. But now we're moving into an area where there are more trees and there's more nature. So then we're still trying to figure out how we do this mapping in those type of areas, right? We've talked about drone mapping or just fixating one of these sensors to a drone. But I'm not sure if that's really if it's really one-to-one. So if you show, okay, you have signal at 50 meters in the air, will you also have the signal between the trees, for example? Because if you're doing the fire detection sensors, you really need to have signal within the forest themselves, so not at 50 meters height. So yeah, we're still trying to figure out how we're best going to handle that. So if anyone has any ideas.
You talk about some of the tool. Oh, go ahead.
Are you mapping, when you're mapping, are you mapping just uplinks, or are you concerned about downlink data getting to the sensors as well?
Mainly uplinks at this
Okay.
time. Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the tools software tools that you use in this mapping process, or in your deployments?
Yeah, sure. So we first start with QGIS, and we basically import the 5-meter resolution topographical maps, which are free in most places. And then we add a couple of layers and also height profiles and all of different type of topographic data. And then from there, we have, for example, 300 locations, and then we do a lot of filtering, RF mapping as well. So we use Cloud RF tool specifically. We use QJS, which is free and open source. We use Google Earth as well. We use Helium Vision as well, which is also a Helium tool released by the community. And I think that's it. So we use those tools, and then we combine them to get all of the data that we need. So we do line of sight analysis, and then of course the Cloud RF diffraction patterns and all of those types of stuff. But we really prefer to have line of sight with most cases.
Yeah,
I
mean, because that's kind of the king when it comes to RF. I mean, if you have line of sight, then you're going to get connection. So
yeah,
exactly. For the most part, yeah.
Hi. I'm curious about like when you have a remote, presumably mountaintop location or whatever, how are you back-ending that on the cellular network then? Or are you?
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So just like a, gotcha. So, and then you have like host agreements otherwise in like some city locations. Are you doing any of that, or like your rooftop deployments? I assume that's like a hosted situation.
Yeah, it's all, yes, exactly. So we have the usual profit sharing structure. We have a fully automated system now. So yeah, for the host in the city, that's how we do it mostly. But then we also have deals in progress with the what do you call those? Those are the natural reserve people who basically control, because a lot of land over here in Europe is public. So we try to get permission to install gateways on like very high mountain rooftops, and at the same time install sensors in those natural regions. For example, we have in Portugal, we have wolves and things like that, which are a endangered species. So for example, tracking animals and looking at water quality, etc. So we try to combine them both. We get the coverage, or we build the coverage, but then we also say, okay, here we have the coverage. Can we please mount this gateway on top of a mountain? But we will also give you sensors for free, which you can then use for conserving nature better than
Wow.
they could do previously. Yeah,
That's super cool. So, and you're just giving them the sensors basically as incentive to allow you to do the deployment.
Yeah, so it's actually this is also pretty interesting, and it also comes back to the previous presentation as well. So the deals we have with the cooperatives for the farmers, for example, we take their earnings and buy sensors for them. So there's an automatic method in which they use their earnings to buy sensors, which they give to their farmers, and the data credits as well. So actually in the beginning, for the first few hundred sensors, they don't even have to pay them. It goes straight from their earnings straight into the sensors. And for them, especially if because a lot of these public institutions, they are budget constrained, especially in the agricultural region. So being able to have sensors and data for free is a very easy, or it makes it very easy for us to deploy these sensors on Helium, because there's almost no paperwork involved and budgets that have to be arranged. It's just, okay, can we use these tokens for buying sensors? So yeah, sure, okay, let's do it. And then it's just signing a few letters, and that's it. And then they can just, every week they can buy a few sensors. And also these hotspots will be deployed at farmers as well. So they have a lot of these gateways lying around, so they don't have to spend any cost on network for at least another five years at least.
Sure.
So it's a very circular type of economy that we're trying to create, because there are a lot of competitors. So there are a lot of big companies that we've noticed coming in and say, okay, we want to deploy a IoT infrastructure in your region. But then those kind of deployments usually cost upwards of 3 or 4 million, and they have contracts where they have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for those type of deployments. And we have none of that. So we deploy all of the infrastructure for free, basically, and they can use it at the beginning. They can bootstrap their operation for free as well. And that's a very attractive value proposition for most of these use cases that we're targeting.
Awesome. That's so cool. Thanks for sharing that. It feels like a shift in my perspective in thinking about how to develop those like host relationships. I love the we're just going to give you sensors, and that's great incentive for you because it's use on the network, and it's just like super circular. Very cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
So I've got another question. How are you going about getting like a civic buy-in from municipalities or cities on this project? I know that's a big question that I get asked a lot. How because it can be difficult, getting that buy-in to the project.
Yeah. So actually, the main issue that we're having with the buy-in is the crypto aspect. So, and a crypto and just money in general, because if money moves around within these public institutions, it's very tightly controlled. And when it's crypto, well, people in general, it's changing, but don't have the best attitude towards these type of technologies. So basically what we do is we don't even talk about it. We just say, you get the sensors, you get the data credits. Of course, you say, oh, it's blockchain, it's high tech, etc. But you don't have to worry about any type of that. And since there's no direct money going back and forth, we don't run into many legal issues, because we're basically gifting them we're basically donating them the sensors from their own earnings from their gateway. Yeah, so far they've been very receptive to that type of structure, because anytime we talk about money and crypto and that type of part and tokens, even they first look at what do I do with this, and then secondly, how can I make this legal, because then you need you need sign off and all type of accounting.
Yeah, but just to clarify, in Portugal there is no no legislation, no regulation for crypto. So it's like a gray area where you cannot do anything else with companies. So it's very tough in that aspect. So so we do it as May told. We just tell them about the sensors, the gateways, deploy them, and we don't talk about the crypto because it's the most difficult thing to get past.
Like, these are not the droids you were looking for. So one question though, are you retaining ownership of the sensors as long as they're in the program, as long as they're or they are actually given or gifted to the companies?
Yeah, it's their sensors. Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
So they have their Helium console. If they're sensors, the only thing, of course, is that what we do is we manage the gateways, because we also have the financial interest in managing those as well.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's all theirs, and probably at some point, we're probably just going to give them the hardware as well. But this also fits into the previous part, is that managing these gateways, there is some know-how involved, right? Especially if you have to migrate them to a different place, then you need to do the reassert, things like that. And that is for most of these people is out of their area of expertise. It's better just not to just lift unnecessary issues, because that will then help with them using the Helium network.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier that you have kind of an admin set up. I mean, you have some type of CMS that you're managing all. I mean, because you've got a ton of gateways out there.
Yeah. So we'll be having close to 200 by the end of April. So we basically did everything with spreadsheets at first, but now we're almost finished with just a fully integrated system, where, for example, a host can just come in at any time and just take out their HNT without having to either wait or send an email, and they can just go into their account and take it off. Yeah, so that was very necessary, because going above 50, 100 gateways, doing spreadsheets and that type of stuff, and just one by one managing all of the payments, it's too much error prone, right, to make it sustainable. So we're really going the professional route, just having a full platform, fully automated, with a Helium blockchain node running in the background, and then some front-end code who just talks to the wallet API and do all the payments, etc.
And you roll that in-house?
Yeah, we've made that in-house. Yeah. We were mostly forced to do it either way, and it's very important to have happy hosts. So we need to make sure that everything is well structured. Yeah.
Just a quick question on the actual sensor deployment aspect of it. So when you are giving these sensors to farmers, for example, are you guys actually managing the data that they are using on the network, or is that kind of completely isolated to them and you just manage the hotspot aspect of it, if you will?
So we will help them with that part. So they have a lot of more classical agricultural engineers, and they usually all of these when we talk micro farmers, right? So it's not one huge farmer which has millions of revenue. We're talking about tons of micro farmers. They usually don't have the budget to develop the software for this. So it's their account, it's their Helium account, but we help them. We help them with software development. So with all of these prototypes, etc. And it's also something that we're also talking with the Helium team about when we need to help. Is we help them with the software, but they tell us what they need. So at the end of the day, it's just a simple question: do I need to water my plants now? Yes or no? So there is tons of data going around, but the end result is just very simple. So we need the information from the farmers to tell us, okay, what you need to know and what are the issues. For example, if you have a lot of birds which just destroy your plants, so we need to know, okay, what are the issues? And then we will develop the software, and then basically give them the software and work with them, and they will then deploy all of their solutions. Of course, there are a lot of smart farming solutions out there, but they're usually quite expensive. So you pay, I don't know, 6-7 euros per sensor per month or something like that. And for a very small farmer, that is too much. And the power of Helium as well is that it's so inexpensive that you don't need all of those extra layers and that extra overhead in order to have a proper working system. So the less layers in between, the less of these surface layers you have, the more beneficial it will be to the end farmer. So the same thing for the fire sensors as well. So we try to really not be that layer. It's very tempting, right, to be that layer and offer those services, etc. But what we're doing is we're taking our HNT earnings, and instead of putting the earnings in our pockets, we hire developers to build those type of solutions. So now we have a team of about 4 or 5 developers who are being paid fully with the HNT to build all of these type of solutions. And yeah, and that at the end is key. And then our hopes is within let's say a year that they will have their own smart sensors. They have 1 or 2 in-house people that know how to manage the entire cluster. And then they could just continue with deploying these sensors wherever necessary. I mean, there is a potential, especially for the farmers and for the fire detection as well. We're talking about tens of thousands of sensors that you have to, or that you can roll out for this. And the municipality spent upwards of, and these are small, these are municipality, we're talking about places with 10,000 inhabitants. They're spending upwards of $300,000-$500,000 a year just on fire prevention, just on cleaning forest, etc. And spending, for example, 50, 60, 100,000 on sensors is not very much. It's definitely worth it for them. So yeah, so there is a very, it's quite simple for us to get traction for these use cases.
Now, do you have relationships with sensor manufacturers that you kind of use as go-tos for these use cases?
So one of our team members, Herculano, has been talking to REC as well, but no. So that's also one of our issues right now, and one of our pain points is that most of these Dragino sensors, they have non-rechargeable batteries, right? So although they last for 3-4 years, if you're careful, if you have tens of thousands of sensors, it's not scalable. So we need sensors which have solar cells, and Portugal has a lot of sun. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that one. So we need sensors who have those solar cells, but for example, the lithium iron or the lithium iron phosphate batteries, which have a long which can handle a lot of cycles. We need those type of sensors to last 5-10 years or sometimes even more to make this scale. But there are no solutions out there. And then also there are some of these plug and play solutions like Rebellion, for example, right? Where they have a central core and then you can plug different sensors, but you're talking about $1,000 for one of those sensors. And that is too expensive to really get all of the data that you need. So we're currently investigating, okay, firstly, how can we manufacture those sensors, right? Because we need that. We have a few people that have some experience, some college students who are helping us with sensor development. So how can you develop a sensor which has a solar panel, for example, which lasts for 5 to 10 years? And how can you add different sensors? And in the case of forest fires, there are no pre-made sensors for it. So if you take for example, the new sensor from Bosch, which has some AI in there to track patterns for smoke, all of that type of sensors, there's nothing built around it yet. So we need to build all of that from scratch. And yeah, that is a very interesting challenge, especially for a team of non-experts, is how we are going to bring that to market. And yeah, that's definitely something we need help from the Helium community and from people who have the experience building and prototyping all of these sensors, because right now we're just wanting to make prototypes, just show that they work. And in the case for example, soil sensors, all that stuff already exists. But then we need kind of a core, a brain, which allows us to plug in different sensors with a small solar cell right on the top. So yeah, there are no easy to use solutions yet for what we need, because we don't want to have 20,000 sensors in the field, and after 2 years we have to switch a battery of 20 sensors or 50 sensors a day. Yeah. For every single day, and then needing a team of 5 to 10 people to just switch out batteries. That's not sustainable.
But I think you're going the right direction. You say you're talking with RAC. I'm a fan of the WizBlock, modular system that they're developing. It's open source as far as the modules are concerned. So if you want to have, new sensors, it's they have a pathway to develop those, and they can work with you as far as production is concerned as well, which is pretty damn cool, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a good way to go forward there, or it seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah, it will take us a bit of time to do all of these prototypes, but our hopes are that by the end of or by the summer we hopefully have one of those, at least a prototype finished for the forest fire detection, and then some prototype as well for the sensor cores for the agricultural use cases as well. In the beginning, we can just use standard sensors to demonstrate that it works. But yeah, we need a solid base on which we can grow. And also, of course, what is really important is the amount of data that we can get. So if we have, it's more worth it to have 20 sensors on a field than having just one very expensive, high quality sensor. Because with a cluster, with clustering of sensors, you can do all types of error corrections. And if you have one expensive sensor and a lot of cheap ones, you can use it as a base station, which they do as well for GPS, right? With the RTK type corrections, etc. So yeah, we are really trying to get those cheap solutions, but which we can scale over a large distance. Because if you have 5 or 10 soil moisture sensors on your field, you can actually see which parts are missing water, instead of just having one measurement and then you kind of, okay, you know how much it's there, but Portugal is not flat, so the water patterns in the ground and with all the rocks are quite different from different places. So especially if you do drone mapping and NDVI mapping for the vegetation, you can very clearly see that there is always regions that have less or more water. And with IoT and with Helium, you really want to have that type of data as well, instead of just having one single measurement point.
Well, and this kind of also comes around to like over-the-air updates, because you have both hotspots in the field and you have your end nodes in the field. And at some point or another, you're going to get to the point where you need to update the firmware that's running on these guys. So what's your methodology there? I mean, what do you what's the plan of attack?
We definitely need that, and we also need it for, also firmware as well, but also for fire detections, for example. We have thought about putting for example, putting sound alarms in forests. So in case a fire is detection, a alarm goes off, and also for triggering different sensors. So you cannot have all sensors running at the same time. So you also sometimes need to trigger sensors manually. So we need it. As to how we're going to do it, I have no clue. It's something that's we're asking people, and people who have experience in the field. Is okay, how we're going to implement it.
Hey, I got a real grandiose idea, maybe. The same way that you're trying to do the fire, the alerts, the detection, if there was an animal in nature that interacted with outside nature and came and interacted with the humans, much maybe something like a wolf, maybe, that could be out there, and then when the alert came, he could come back to the humans and say that the fire is there.
That's funny, because there's a lot of wolves in Portugal. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think? See, my brain, man, that's how I be thinking. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that part with the wolves, but especially same thing happened in Australia, right? That the forest fire, and there's a lot of wildlife which dies from all these fires. And having same thing here in Portugal as well. So having some type of alarm system to scare away animals from closing in forest fires would probably be a good idea. And there are lots of these LoRa buzzers which make a lot of noise. So it might actually be a pretty good idea as well.
Yeah, I got one more, still on the similar end though. if there was like a biologist that knew that there's a certain chemical or organism that burns or disappears just before a huge forest fire, for example, I don't know, like a certain leaf or a certain organism or insect, that would then build the alarm that then could notify somebody
Pretty awesome.
earlier, faster.
That's a pretty awesome idea, actually, man.
Yeah, and that's pretty interesting because that's exactly what we were thinking about. Bosch released a few months ago their sensor with the AI component. It's basically a digital nose. And the interesting thing is that what burns in Portugal mostly the pine trees, right? And the pine trees, they have a certain resin, and the volatile organic compounds that come from that have a certain signature. So you can plug in to that exact signature, and then once you measure that signature, you know, okay, this is definitely a pine tree forest fire. So yeah, that is definitely a very good idea, and I think it's almost necessary because just detecting smoke is not enough in this case. We need to really create a artificial forest fire, do all of the measurements, and then okay, look at what type of volatiles are created from this, and then recognize that exact pattern, and that's inevitable, right? To do those type of measurements.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Because we have been looking at different ways to detect forest fires, and a lot of the literature from scholars, etc., they focus really on the thermal infrared, right, of the infrared part. They have some sensors which use the particle matters, but one of the questions is still that it's mostly the gases which reach a particular place first, and of course we have some wind, some factors with wind, in which direction is the wind, etc. But hopefully this summer we'll actually do a controlled fire test and actually have different of these sensor development boards laying around, and actually try to figure out what is our resolution that we can obtain, because that's still a question, right? If our resolution is for example 500 meters, but we can only measure if you can only measure a fire if it's like 10 to 20 meters away, then it's going to be a bit tricky. And then we were probably, because we need to notify of this fire in the first 5 minutes. Those are absolutely critical, because if you're at 20 minutes, then probably someone's going to call there's a fire. So our question is still, as these sensors also get better and they have a higher part per billion measuring resolution, we hope that we can detect a fire from at least 100 meters away, because then it would be then the resolution would be enough for us to deploy this really in large scale. But then again, the same thing, the question is as well, a lot of the issues are at night, for example, right? So during the day someone calls, but at night when people are asleep, a lot of times fire aren't notified or aren't detected by people until sometimes an hour. And if you're living in the US, for example, where there's some areas where there's almost no one living, it can be, well, many hours. So even if our resolution isn't high, having some kind of detection method at night when everyone is sleeping, so that you can sleep safe, especially if you have a cabin in the woods, is quite important.
And you can feed in real-time data from weather stations. You were talking about wind data earlier, right?
Yeah. So what happens with a forest fire is that your temperature increases, but your humidity drops. So you can by combining the wind speed, the humidity drop, the temperature increase, and the volatiles, the sulfur and the carbon volatiles. By combining all of that, you can create a pretty intelligent system to then notify if there's a fire. And also we need to also do some clever work with how we measure, right? Because we cannot measure from all senses at the same time. And if you have a road, for example, it probably doesn't make much sense to measure every sensor at the same time. So we need some kind of stepping method where we do, for example, we measure of two sensors, one in the middle we don't measure, so that we have kind of a hopping mechanism between all of these measurements. So
and this could be fed, and this could be fed into machine learning, like setups. There's no, very cool, man.
Yeah, we're currently talking with two universities who are doing the research component of this.
Okay.
And they have already offered to help us with the algorithm part and getting actually distinguishing between actual fire and the false positive.
And IBM has their big weather or their big data weather setup in the cloud that has huge data sets of historical weather patterns of that you can run a lot of these algorithms against.
And also most fires are also put manually. So if you look, most of the fires are put on the hottest days as well. So you can have also, and that's also some kind of strategy that they already use in Portugal, is they have different alert levels for fire risk. So you can actually build a live fire index with all of these sensors and say, okay, these regions are more prone to fires than others. So there are a lot of use cases that can be developed around fire detection, and it's becoming increasingly more relevant to do so.
Well, man, we're right at, I guess we've already run an hour over tonight, but man, thank you very much for speaking tonight. This is great, man. I'd like you to come back on and give us an update though. Once this project develops, I'd like to know how this is progressing.
Yeah, sure. Thank you all as well for giving us the time. Yeah, and we will be here. We're in the community, so we're always around Discord. Yeah, and we will definitely keep everyone posted on progress, etc.
Please do, and good luck. And when you have your scientists and everything, I think really focus on the integration of the animals, that maybe they can work together. If we work together, and I know it sounds really crazy, but if you go there, it'll all kind of make sense. Maybe more and more you go down the rabbit hole of it.
I'd like to add, I'm really interested in this project.
Me too.
I did wildfire training about a year and a half ago at a camp in Colorado. They do controlled burns weekly, and I'm in that area this summer. So if you want, I could possibly install some sensors in the hotspot there. Travis, I'm kind of new to the community, so if you could help me put me in touch with them, that'd be great.
Yeah, just hit me up. I'm TT on Discord. So if you want to drop links for the Portugal project, and all related links in here, I'll make sure these get over to Discord, so you can be contacted.
Yeah, great.
Perfect.
Well, I don't want to cut off the call before, if someone has a question that's just really been burning, I want you to be able to get this in before we drop off this call. So, now's the time if anyone has a question that they want to ask.
I'll just add one thing. I'm Erkwan, I'm from Sharespot as well. Today we are just waiting for hotspots. We are waiting for the validators to come on so we can get more hotspots. We have right now 700, right, mate? 700 spots to place the hotspots. So we just need that validators to come on so we can get the light gateways and deploy these as fast as we can. And let's go.
I feel you. Let's go, man. Let's go. You're part of the test net, right? With validators testing this stuff out.
No. We are not. We are focused on use cases and developing the deployment of the network. So But we want the validators to come on so we can get more and more equipment and deploy these as fast as we can.
Joey said he'll fly out there to Portugal if you need help installing. So.
Thank you, Joey.
But excellent. No, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. In the past few weeks, talking about your project. This is great. I love what you have going on out there, and please keep us, in the loop about what's going on with the project. And thank you very much for being on Hacks tonight.
Thank you for having us, Travis. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
And I guess with that, I'm going to close the call. Thank you, everyone. I know we kind of ran well over an extra hour tonight, but I hope everyone realized it was worth it and had a good time. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. And next week, same bat time, same bat hour. I'll see you. Be safe, folks. Bye.
Thank you, Travis. Stay safe, everyone. Bye.